Hello, denizens, and welcome back to Starsector. It's been a little while since I posted the first video on the channel, and there is a very good reason for that. I started it up, I explained some of the basic gameplay, and the game proceeded to kick my butt. I operated under the assumption that if I chose a trading start, that, well, I'd be relatively safe and I could get my feet under me before I engaged in some combat. Boy, was I wrong. I had pirates from everywhere, all over, chasing me. I didn't manage to complete a single trade. I bought some items at one trading station, flew a little ways, got one of my ships blown up. They immediately turned and ran after my other ship. It got blown up. I did terrible. And so I've taken some time to get a little bit more used to the game so that I can show you meaningful gameplay other than me just getting my butt kicked. Because while that is entertaining, I would like to show something beyond the first, 10 minutes of the game. So let's go ahead and jump in. We're going to start a new game. Again, you can go into these missions and it's more things like the tutorial, except obviously without the tutorial text over top. So you can get these combat missions with these huge fleets. I mean, look at this. 7 ships versus all of this, and you can go through these and enjoy combat without playing the main game. But for me, that combat is the whole point of the main game, and I want to play the main game to get that far. So we're going to go ahead and start up. We have our choice of pilot picture. There's various pilots of both genders here. I think we're going to choose this one. This one looks the most like a penguin to me. And we're going to give ourselves a name. We're going to leave help pop-ups on because I am not an expert at this game. I will be the first to admit this is still a relatively early look. It's just hopefully it's not quite as bad as that first run did. So here is where I consider that I made my first mistake. I thought, an honest trader. Okay, that'll be a nice, easy, slow start to the game. Wrong. That meant every combat I got into I was outmatched, and I didn't know really what I was doing and what were good buys, and there was a lot of information to go over in the game, and I think that's probably not the start we're going to take this time. Instead, I think we're going to choose Privateer. My reasoning for this is that Smuggler, I feel like I would need to know how to go dark and evade the system patrols and things like that, and I'm not all that good at that yet. We could practice that even as a Privateer. Although the hegemony, which is what I expect us to be a privateer for, doesn't like it when you turn off your transponder and you don't announce your presence. We could also go bounty hunter. That, to me, that limits your targets and potentially puts you at odds with the local military forces. Again, that's not something that I really want to do at this time. I think Privateer is going to make us friendly with the local forces and let us go after the pirates and start with a decent military ship. And we can get into a little bit of the trading on the side just as we fly around. Hopefully we won't have too small of a cargo. So let's go ahead and choose a Privateer. Now, we can either choose a Lasher-class frigate with considerable firepower or a Scarab-class experimental frigate recently acquired from the Try Starsector Corporation. Now this is an interesting choice. I actually don't know at the moment. We might be able to go look up these ships. In fact, let's see if we can do that. We can go into the codex here and look at ship hulls. And we should be able to look at just frigates and find those two that they mentioned. We had a Lasher. Let's see if we can, it's probably just regular Lasher. Okay, so we can see that we have, we do have shield, so it's only a frontal shield. Decent flux, decent top speed, 50 ordnance points. That's kind of the sum total of all the weapons you can mount on your ship. How many, almost like how many hard points you're using up, beyond the turret points, because if you want more ordnance points, you can reduce the number of vents you have and things like that. So let's see. We also have this. This is a special ability. Every ship has a special ability. I forgot to mention this in the tutorial, but every ship has one of these, and this one provides a flux cost reduction and a brief boost to the fire rate of all ballistic weapons. Now that's actually pretty impressive because this ship has 5 small ballistic mounts. 2 missile mounts, but that bonus will apply to our ballistic mounts only, and there's 5 of them. That's a lot. Let's take a look at that Scarab class. Now this is a heavy frigate. Ooh, I like that. It's a rare experimental hull developed by the Try Corporation. Only a limited run of prototypes has been produced. I wonder if we'll be able to get this ship through the regular gameplay, maybe off the black market, but normally you wouldn't be able to get it. Okay, so here we have 55 ordnance points. We're a little bit faster. We have an Omni Shield. Okay, I like that. Choosing this ship will probably make us at odds with the Tritachyon Corporation, but I don't mind. I have a feeling we're going to play pretty safe for a while and hopefully avoid any of the large fleet engagements until we are relatively well established, because I'll be the first to admit, I'm not very good at this game. I haven't played it all that much. There's some people out there, you can actually look at some other channels, and I did try to get a little bit more information, of people who are a little bit more knowledgeable about the game, and they go into depth, and they can take on things that I just can't. But let's take a look at the ability here. Speeds up the flow of time on board the ship. Generates a significant amount of flux when used. I wonder what that does. Let's see, it says up here. It's not so much that the scarab manipulates time as it avoids the normal rate of consequence of the local frame of reference. The effect, as upsetting to ludic theologians as it is to a layman, is to seemingly slow time for the outside world. Of course, one must avoid stating it thus in earshot of the applied temporal physicists who deal in such miracles to avoid a tedious correction of terminology. Okay, so it looks like it's slow. It's kind of like bullet time. That sounds cool. Okay, after careful consideration, I have decided we are totally stealing this ship. That sounds like definitely what we're going to do. Let's reset this up. Scarab-class experimental frigate recently acquired from the Tritachyon Corporation. Now, this may mean we can't fly through their space like at all, because they'll recognize it as theirs, but it's okay. Tritachyon Corporation is now hostile. So basically, to do any business with them, I think I have to turn my transponder off. And we'll get into that as soon as we get into the game. Now, more recently, you have either, 1, hired an officer and outfitted a small combat frigate for them to command. Cool. Or had business dealings with a prominent pirate captain. I'm thinking I want this option because more ships is A, better. 2, I have a feeling I'm not going to be dealing a lot with the pirates in the beginning. I think that's a very rewarding section of the game, and it looks like it's relatively full-featured. But, let's just say I don't know my way around the game well enough to play some of those harder options, I think. So we're going to choose this. All in all, recent life in the sector has been relatively easy. Okay, now it tells you down here in the bottom right what the effect of that is. Now, I could play normal. Normally when I go into a game, I will play on normal, but let's just say, even on easy as a trader, the game kicked my butt, so we're going to try on easy again. This reduces the damage taken by 50% and increases the damage you deal by 50%. That is a huge swing in damage. And again, you get an extra ship, you get more credits, it's just a huge boost to starting, and that's really going to help us, A, not die immediately, and 2, it's also going to help us get to more meaty content quicker. So we're going to go ahead and do easy, and if the game turns out to be too easy, well, I have no problem coming back and playing again on normal, potentially with some mods, because there are mods for this game and they look super interesting. Okay, so now what I do want to do is I want to go into this manual assignment. Normally you can do automatic skill assignment for your ship. It's going to, based on these options, it's going to pick something that it thinks are the best options for you, but I'm going to go ahead and choose manual assignment because this is something that I kind of want to show off and explain a little bit, because the first time you see this, you'll be puzzled by the fact that there's this industry down here that appears to have no skills next to it. These are aptitudes and these are skills. That's because for industry, the core industry skills of the vanilla game are not implemented yet, as far as I know. Instead, currently there are mods that fill out this, and we're playing on vanilla, so we don't have anything there. So you're limited in what you can choose. We're limited to putting 2 aptitude points in and 4 skill points. However, it is worth stating that at the beginning of the game, you probably want to put both of your aptitude points in the same, well, not necessarily, but you might want to do that, putting them in the same aptitude, because you can put multiple points into any given skill. You'll notice, for instance, on this skill, it gives a flat bonus up there at the top, 0% missile speed and maneuverability per skill level, and it increases 5%. And then if you continue to level it up, you get the use of additional hull mods, you get additional skills, and all of these are different. And eventually, if you get it all the way up to 10, which is the maximum, I believe, then you get a large bonus. But you're limited in how many skill points you can put into a skill by how many points are in that aptitude. So to put 2 points into this skill, I would need at least 2 points in combat. So these main combat skills largely apply to your flagship only. I believe there is one of these that does all ships and fleet. For instance, that ordnance expertise, if you get it all the way to level 10, will benefit all ships in your fleet. And it's a large benefit, I think. It sounds to me like getting more ordnance points is going to let you put on bigger guns without investing in larger ships, which means that you get more bang out of each ship that you have. And that to me sounds fantastic, because you're limited by the fleet deployment points, and that's not going to increase or decrease relative to your ordnance value. So leadership is going to be largely fleet-wide, all your ships. It's going to be various bonuses. Here you can see it has crew experience, command points, which are the orders you can give in battle, and reduced supply. Then you have various things such as range. You have benefiting auto-firing weapons, which is pretty cool. Flux dissipation, armor. I'm not going to go into each option because, as you can see, the benefits and the details are pretty deep. I mean, look at this. I mean, you can see all those different hull mods, and I have no idea what hull mods are really beneficial, although I see that Omni Shield emitter, and it looks like potentially you could add that to a ship that doesn't have an Omni Shield to gain an Omni Shield. Omni Shield meaning it goes all the way around the ship, as opposed to some sort of directional shield. We're probably going to go combat because we're a privateer. It just makes sense. So let's put both of our points into combat. Now, we have... We have to choose either 2 skills to apply 2 points into each, or up to 4 skills with 1 point. Now, flux dissipation, see, these are 1 point per level. What can we get for relatively few points? If I put 3 points in this, I can get expanded missile racks. That's good. Increasing the ballistic and energy projectile speed sounds fantastic, because that's going to mean we're going to miss a lot less. This looks like a very good skill to learn. I'm going to go ahead and put 2 points in that. And then let's also reduce the damage we take. And this can also lead to an automated repair unit later on down. So let's go ahead and take these options and start the game. It's going to generate it's not a galaxy, but the star sectors. And it's going to simulate the economy for a while, simulate events. And you can actually see that, if we go to Intel, that there's all sorts of events that have been in the game. And so you start in with existing conditions as though you had been playing the game for some time. Now, ignore the rest of the screen. We'll get back to it once we explain a little bit more of what you're seeing on screen. So, this is us. There are other ships around here. There's a station over here. There's a planet here. Various ships. I believe that the circle around here indicates what nationality they are. Gray is unknown. And this is us. So we are either 2 or 3 ships. Let's take a look. We have our fleet options here. We're 3 ships. Now, if you remember right, this ship is because we chose easy, and this is because of our choices when we were choosing our privateer start. So we have the Scarab class heavy frigate. We have the Kite A-class shuttle. That sounds horrible, but okay. For comparison, we have 7 energy mounts, 2 small synergy mounts. They have 2 small missiles and 1 small ballistic. Not going to get a lot done with them. We also have this close support frigate. It's got a good wide range of mounts. We're going to take a look at the weapon firing arcs and see what our ship's strengths are here in a minute. But when you first start up the game, there's going to be this panel down here is going to be your first primary goal to understand. And you're going to have over here the available credits that you have. how many supplies you have, and your ship is going to, or your fleet is going to use supplies per day, and that's going to increase or decrease depending on whether you're doing repairs or you are doing hard burns and that sort of thing. But what you can think of this as is just the supplies needed to keep your fleet running. If this number starts to drop and you start running out of supplies, then you might start getting malfunctions. Even in combat, things might disable temporarily. It's bad. You want to make sure you have supplies. And we use 0.5 supplies per day. So that means our supplies on hand are enough for 120 days. And all of that is coming just from regular ship maintenance. There's no repairs or anything. So that number will increase if we take some damage. Then we have fuel. This is normally only used in hyperspace. If you're just flying around in the regular system as you see here, then you won't be using fuel. But we can go ahead and we can see fuel consumption, both what they're offering and what is costing us so much fuel. Now, because we have all small ships, they all have a fuel cost of 1, so anytime we enter into hyperspace, we're going to be burning 3 fuel per light year, I believe it is, per day. So, because I believe we travel at, it actually said in here, 2.7 fuel and 0.9 light years per day. Because we have a maximum burn level of 9. Your burn level, which is visible here, is based on your slowest ship in your fleet. So everybody will slow down to let that one ship move. And in this case, our shuttle is just slightly slower than our other ships. Again, I believe this only affects hyperspace. I don't think this affects flying around in normal space. You can get to hyperspace by moving to one of these jump points that are present in the system. Possibly this gate too, I'm not sure. I haven't survived long enough to find out. This is your combat readiness. I believe 50 combat readiness is considered average, and above that you start getting benefits and boosts if your ships are doing better. So if I hover over here, I can see that because I have a positive combat readiness, I have additional bonuses to my shield flux per damage, my flux capacity, my flux dissipation, and my top speed. Looks like my flux capacity is actually largely increased. Interestingly, we have a little bit more information about what our weapon mods are. We can actually see what we've started with by default. We've started with an antimatter blaster, an IR pulse laser, an ion cannon, 2-point defense lasers, and 2 Atropos class torpedoes, which is pretty sweet. You're going to recover combat readiness per day. This ship, for instance, recovers at 7%, and but anytime that you're going to be costing additional supplies. Looks like that's 8 supplies. That's a lot. So we're probably going to want to invest in some more supplies. Although it says we're supplies 8 per month, so maybe that's at a slower rate than I'm giving it credit for. To be honest, I don't know. We're going to find out. We'll just have to make sure that we keep an eye on that supply use over time. Also, since I've unpaused the game, I believe I have an additional display here, which is... Nope, okay, it's just if we go into the fleet menu, which you can see your cargo capacity, your personnel capacity, because you're going to have to buy crew if you lose crew. I need 52 crew just to do basic operations. If I have less crew than that, I think I have to start abandoning ships. So we don't want to lose too much crew, but we're okay right now. Okay, lastly we have our armor status and any repairs that we're currently doing. And over here, this is your sensor range. This is a pretty cool game in which you can turn off your active sensors. If you've ever studied naval combat or read something like The Hunt for Red October, not seen the movie, but you've read the book, then you're probably familiar with this idea of both passive sensors and active sensors. With passive sensors, now we have a boost because we chose easy, we can see a medium-sized fleet with a sensor profile of 10, which I'm not sure how you know what your sensor profile is, but we could see them at a range of 1,290. Now, we have our transponder on, so people will be able to see us. Oh, well, here it says we have a sensor profile of 3. Then people will be able to see us, that same medium-sized fleet that we would be able to see at 1,290, would be able to see us at 1,740. So we are actually more visible than our sensors are. Now, we can affect that by turning off our transponder. I'm not going to do it right here because the hegemony does not like it when you run with your transponder off. In fact, I believe it'll warn you about that here. But it will drop your visibility to sensors by a lot. You're basically running quiet. With the transponder, you have a radio open that says, "Yo, here I am," and anybody that's nearby can see you. If you turn that off, then you're not announcing your position, but you are even more visible than you would be if you used this skill. This skill is Go Dark. Basically, you slow down by 50%, but you're running quiet. People can't see you from as far, so you can do that to try to sneak your way around. And I would advise doing that if you have your transponder off, because again, these guys are going to come after you if you turn your transponder off. They will come and they'll find you, and your standings will take a hit. I know because I did it, and I'm not going to do it again. At least not right now, because I need to check our faction standings first. We can also do an active sensor burst, and basically this is this huge ping. It's like a ping in submarine warfare, where you send out this blast, and we can see out to 3,000 units. Well, it increases by 3,000 units, but it also increases the range at which other people can hear us. And that's more than the benefit we get, because we have to get kind of that return signal. It has to go out and come back, whereas somebody listening only has to hear it coming in. So they can hear us from farther away, but we can do that to try to track down any fleets. And since we're privateers, we may want to be doing that. Lastly, we have the emergency burn, which is kind of either your catch-up tool or your escape tool. I think it's a little bit more beneficial as an escape tool because it's going to decrease your combat readiness when you use it. So that means if you try to use it to catch up, you're going to go into combat a little bit weaker than you would otherwise. But if you need that to catch up, then maybe that's what you need to do. It's also going to make you a little bit more blind because it's going to reduce your sensor range because you're running so hot you can't listen as clearly. And obviously, your people will be able to hear you from much further away. Down here, we have character, which is your regular skills tree. We saw this already. We already allocated our points, and we're nowhere near leveling up. But we'll hopefully be visiting this again because we'll hopefully survive that long. Next up, we have the fleet screen. You saw me hover over this. You can hover over this little button right here to get some information about your ships. And this is highly detailed, as you can tell. Everything from how many crew we need, what speed we can achieve, how many flight decks we have, so there's carriers in this game, as you saw in the tutorial, and I'm highly excited about that because those carriers can continue to pump out fighters. They're individually weak, but that's individually. So, we're going to be able to see more of these once we dock at that station over there. We can also refit. It's going to warn you that if you try to refit in open space, then it's going to reduce your combat readiness, and I think it possibly costs some supplies. I'm not 100% sure, but it warns you about that. I actually want them to remind us of this because I don't want to accidentally do that. But you could see here what weapons you have mounted and what their firing arcs are. If you remember in our little tutorial video, we got to take a look at these, and now that we actually have our own ships, before we get in combat, I want to see what we have. We have 2 frontal torpedoes. These are guided torpedoes, very nice. Smaller than usual to make room for the advanced guidance system, but that's okay. Hopefully, how many can they store? Ammo 1. Ooh. That's not so hot. Our shield arc is 180. Okay, it's not true circle. I thought it was, but that's still better than the arc I think we were getting from the other frigate. Let's take a look at these other weapons. We also have an IR pulse laser. I believe this is point defense? No, it's not. An IR pulse laser. Okay, this can kind of fire forward, but it's also primarily aimed at our side. If we're flying straight at somebody... Boy, these... I hope that's not just the range. Does it say the range? Range 500. Ranged... This might be the range. If so, this is extremely close range. I'm thinking 500 is a bit longer than that, but I could be wrong. Now, this is an energy weapon, which is equally effective against shields and armor, as well as hull. And I believe they're higher flux. So, okay, we have an ion cannon as well, so we are not balanced here. We have an IR pulse laser on this side and an ion cannon on this side. This is pretty cool because this is that disabling of systems that I mentioned but didn't show off in the first video. So our primary targets are obviously going to be weapon systems and engines. We also have an antimatter blaster. Slow-firing, extremely high-damage energy gun meant to pose a threat to the largest ships in the sector. Can only be used at close range. Yeah, it's only got 400 range. But, oh my goodness, it's 1,400 damage per shot. Only gets 20 shots. Huh. Interesting. That's very interesting. Okay, we also have point defense lasers, which are going to be good, but it's important to notice that they don't cover us from the front. They only cover us on the side and the back. So those will shoot down any fighters, but primarily they'll shoot down missiles. Over here, you can see the number of ordnance points that you have on your ship, as well as the general stats. So if I hover... Oh, there's another little thing. There's an empty turret mount here and an empty turret mount here. Very interesting. Now, we're full on ordnance points, so we can't take advantage of those at the moment, but we may want to once we visit the station. But you can see this is 5 ordnance points. You can see that both in the display on the left, as well as right underneath my cursor. I'd point at them, but then it wouldn't show it. So each of these has an ordnance point that is going to affect, wow, 9. That's going to affect how much we can put on the ship. Additionally, these vents are going to add to the ordnance points. And those are going to increase our flux dissipation rate, which is good, particularly since we're using a lot of energy weapons, which, I believe increase your flux at a faster rate. Flux per second, 50, 50, 152, 60, missiles don't matter, and 146. So yeah, this guy right here is particularly expensive. Interesting. I'm now seeing... Was it showing that before? Was it showing the wider range indicator? I don't remember that. I'm not sure. Capacitors are going to increase our flux capacity, which is how much we can accumulate before we have to either have to vent or we overload. And this is vents are going to increase the rate at which you get rid of flux. So here are 2 other stats. Now, I'm not sure how you can affect these other than skills, but that is how much flux you get per point of damage on your shields, and how much it takes just normally to keep your shields up and running. Blast doors. What are these? Increases hull integrity. Okay, so this means your ship takes 50% less crew casualties and 75% less combat readiness reduction from hull damage sustained in combat. Again, we're hopefully not going to get any, but we'll see. Now, interesting. This has a militarized hegemony auxiliary. Increases armor. Lots of bonuses on that. Cool. Increases armor, increases handling, increases flux capacity, increases flux dissipation. Very cool. Now, they have a missile system rated as close support, although it does have a longer range. This is that fragmentation damage type, and this is the damage type that we didn't encounter in the tutorial. And that's the one that's good against hull and fighters. But... interesting. I don't see an ammo count on this. An auto-loader system ensures usefulness in protracted engagements. Interesting, I didn't know they had that. This appears to be a missile system that has unlimited ammunition. So that is very nice. It uses an... Oh, cool. Not only that, it also disables targets' engines with an EMP burst. Very nice. And then we have a dual autocannon with a pretty good sweep of range. And I have a feeling that this ship is highly agile, so that's also very good. Bringing shields down. Okay, because it's kinetic, it's going to do increased damage to shields. And it fires 2 shots of 50 damage each. Very low accuracy. Very slow turn rate, or slow turn rate on the actual turret itself. But again, since the ship is so agile, I'm not sure that matters, particularly when the AI is controlling it. We have another launcher. This one does have an ammo count. You can see that underneath the damage. It's also high explosive damage, which is going to do good damage against armor as well as hull, I believe. And since fighters typically don't have shields, then I think that does a pretty good job in its anti-fighter role. So all in all, this guy actually looks, for being a shuttle, he's surprisingly capable. Lastly, we have this guy. Okay, so he is a graviton beam, which has long range. Effective versus shields, because it's kinetic, which is a bit interesting for an energy weapon, but very narrow arc on that weapon. But good damage and good range. I like it. He has harpoon MRMs. Not very many. He only has 3 shots with that, but they do a lot of damage. 750 damage. So this is a missile you probably only want to use once the target's shields are down, both because it's high explosive and also because you have such limited ammo you don't want them to be able to shoot your missiles down, and you don't want to waste them on the shield. So what you really want to do is you want to use the graviton beam as you close to overload their shields. Once they've actually overloaded, then you open up with your missiles and do a lot of armor and hull damage. We also have a tactical laser. Accuracy perfect. Accuracy perfect. This is a fast turn rate weapon, which does a lot less damage, well, not a lot less, than the graviton beam, but what is important is that is an energy weapon, which means it's kind of that universal damage type. It does the stated damage against everything. So it's good at all stages of an engagement. Lastly, we have 2 more tactical lasers. This is interesting. Wow, so if he's facing somebody, he can do a lot of energy damage on the target, and those have good range. Very nice. I like this ship. I like those energy weapons because both for their range and also because you don't have to worry quite as much about designing the ship with many different weapon types to take advantage of different tactical situations. He has expanded missile racks, which is going to expand the ammo capacity of missile weapons by 75%. Not hugely a fan of that. He only has these 2 weapon mounts here, and these are missile mounts, so they're always going to be missiles, but for a moment there we thought we had another weapon. But, you know, when you only have 3 ammo, increasing it by 75% isn't all that much. Advanced optics. Extends the range of beam weapons, very nice, but reduces their turn rate. Interesting. We'll see how that is. You can also run simulations. This is pretty cool. You can actually, if we click this, it'll load up a combat situation where we can be like, okay, we want our ships, and then we want to go up against, you know, this giant ship over here. We're not actually going to do that. Although what we can do is see how agile our ship is. Okay, now again, I don't want to actually fire any of my missiles, but you can see, we're pretty agile. So let's take a look at our antimatter blaster. Long time on that, but it's pretty good. We also have these, which are our pulse lasers and our ion cannon. Now it's interesting to note, if I remember right, the one on the left gets stuck. Its firing arc doesn't cover. So only in the very center do these 2 weapons overlap. You'll notice this as I sweep my weapons over. I'm now out of range of the one weapon and it won't actually fire. Which is nice because it keeps my flux down. I'll have to go back and revisit and see which weapon is which, but... And we also have our point defense lasers. So our ship is actually somewhat interesting in the fact that it's surprisingly less effective than I think than the other frigate that it gave us, but I think we can turn this ship into a very, very nice ship. Particularly since we have 2 weapon mounts that are completely unused. Okay, next up we have the crew that we have with us. Or, excuse me, all the cargo that we have with us, which right now consists of crew, supplies, and fuel. That's it. But if we had any ship weapons, those would also be visible here. Next up, we have the system map, which I brought up briefly earlier. And on here, you can see any fleets that you know about. So, for instance, I am in this zone right here, and I can see that I have a mercenary patrol, as well as several other hegemony ships. Right here is the station that I am nearby, and the planet. Over here we have an abandoned terraforming platform, and a Sharu stellar shade. No idea what that is. Didn't survive long enough to see it. As well as 2 systems over here. There's a pirate base over here. And then this planet, I believe, is also pirate controlled. This planet, I do not believe. I believe this blue means it is completely uncontrolled by anybody. This relay over here is a communication station. And we're not going to do too much at the moment except fly over to that station. We're going to take a look at what the station can do. We're going to look at this once we get into the station, and we're going to look at the trading as well as the other factions, because we'll be able to get a little bit more information once we're in there that'll be relevant. So left click to move, and you'll just fly there. So these are friendly ships. Let's just fly into the station. So I actually think we're going to call it here, and in episode 3, we're going to look at this station, get our first targets to go after, and find out who we can kill for money, because we are a privateer for the hegemony. Alright folks, see you then.